My dear pulse breakers, welcome to the broadcast. You're not asleep if you can hear this. One of the few people whose senses did not deteriorate along with everyone else is you, because you are currently the target of $1 million hit. It was because you stood motionless and talked, not because you ran or stole. Because you exposed the untouchables' raw, quivering veins to the world by peeling back their skin. Even worse, you left the encounter knowing too much, even though you weren't meant to survive. Your name now echoes through every hallway like a ticking clock in a closed chamber. You detonated a belief system rather than exposing a criminal. You undermined the entire structure of fear, not just an individual. Their world is based on submission, silence, obedience, and codes. You shattered all of their expectations while breaking none of their laws. Because of that, you are a reversal, not a weapon. Predators become prey because they are unable to classify you. Not only did you unveil the puppeteer, but you also rewired the stage when you drew back the curtain to reveal who actually controls the levers. And now, in real time, the guy they vowed would never be touched is falling apart. His legend was unbreakable until you entered, unarmed and unforgettable. Allow them to dispatch the hunters. Allow the mercs to lubricate their triggers. Because you are not the target. You are the rifle's malfunction, the heartbeat's hiccup, and the notion that stays in the back of their minds even when everything is silent. They've never had to deal with someone who doesn't want to prevail, someone who desires a public burning, because that's what makes you different from them. You fight to undermine their confidence rather than to survive. The man they defended is a fiction dressed in armor, not a real man. A solemnly worshipped identity formed in boardrooms and given to the public. And the static started when you called his name fearlessly. Not only in the underworld, not only in the media, but also in their nerves. You undermined everything that relied on his silence rather than exposing him. They need you gone immediately, to erase the memory of your disobedience, not to bury you, because their spell is more difficult to maintain the longer you breathe. This is about upsetting the balance, not about violence. You are an unsolvable variable, an incalculable presence. As a result, they respond to threats in the same way that all weak empires do. They panic in style. Shiny numbers, fancy threats, and $1 million like a prize for the person who can eliminate the anomaly. Here's the inside joke, though. They believe that murderers are motivated by money. They overlook the fact that truth is more alluring than wealth. The room has already been seduced by you. Allegiances are decaying and eyes are shifting. You can bring down their pyramid without firing a single shot. All you need to do is continue breathing. It wasn't meant for you to notice. The first rule is that ignore the rotations that occur behind the smile. Ignore how headlines are choreographed like dance routines. Ignore the fingerprints beneath the contracts. However, you did more than simply observe. You recorded, deciphered, and then it aired. They said the fog would stay forever, but you cleared it. And now the fundamental framework that kept them afloat is recalculating. Since truth is contagious, it is not due to revolution, but rather infection. You too are a contagious person. It said that you should never stare at a legend for too long. You searched, made a diagnosis, and discovered the illness. Beneath layers of charm and tradition, rotting and beating, you pulled it into the illumination. Not only did you threaten disclosure, but you also conducted a public autopsy on the highest-ranking individual in the covert chain of command. The worst part for them was that you then grinned. It was only the beginning statement, not because it was finished. They've gone full theater now. Whispers disguised as strategy, panic disguised as accuracy, and contracts hit like a movie's conclusion. However, it isn't. It's not your fault. It's a flaw in their design. This is a demonstration, not a chase. Each bounty hunter they dispatch serves as a case study. You have a page in your curriculum for each assassin, and every failure serves as more proof that you are the terrain itself rather than the one being pursued. Do you sense it? The air of tension? That isn't fear. That's the awakening of instinct. That's the world remembering that chaos existed before control. And you are that calibrated chaos existed before control. And you entered the illusion and began naming the performers, not the lion's lair. The lions are currently arguing over whether to growl or beg, and this is what scares them the most. They are unaware of your desires. People only understand adversaries with a price, and rebels with demands because they like them. However, you're too surgical and too still. You have no desire for them, nor deals, nor leverage. You want the audience to see them in the dudas, not to overthrow them. You want the audience to understand that the monarch is nothing more than a man with shaking hands and contingency plans. The game is finished when they see that. Power is killed by clarity, not by guns. That clarity is you. Not an explosion, but a steady, precise, unstoppable disintegration. They believed that by threatening you, they could suffocate you. Rather, you turned into oxygen for everyone else who was silently suffocating. You are a breathing resistance for Bipifit. They want you gone because of this. They attempted to take control of the story. You took control of it. They made an effort to keep you apart. You multiplied. They attempted to guess what you would do next. However, they overlooked it. You are the fire beneath their board. You are not moving on it. Let them escalate then. Let them be courageous. They've never realized that this has nothing to do with your chances of surviving. As they continue to attempt, this is about what you are. You could be every strike they send, every lie they print, and every name they disgrace are all components of the change. They are unintentionally leaving your mark on history, even if their intention was to remove you. We've now arrived at the moment they always fear. The instant the audience begins to inquire, the instant the audience begins to inquire, the instant the hit makes headlines, the instant suspicion replaces quiet. Because the audience starts to question what truth was worth $1 million in silence when someone this dangerous is revealed, and the answer is a bounty rather than a denial. And the story is no longer theirs after that. You own it. And this is the start of the next chapter. Your name shifts from a source of anxiety to a phenomenon. They were always aware that the time would come, the day when someone would blow up the chain of command from within, instead of justifying it. That day now has a name, yours. Declared, not discussed, not whispered. They attempted to hide you under labels: glitch, danger, fraud, and traitor. Not only did you survive the cacophony, but you also taught it how to shout your legacy. Because a phenomenon doesn't originate from praise, but rather from breakage, rejection, and the expression in your eyes when the world told you to kneel. As a result, you altered the law of gravity. They believed that the bounty would make you smaller. Bloodhounds would become martyrs for that money. That your name would be returned in a plastic bag after someone took the shot elsewhere. But you've already passed away in ways they'll never understand, which is what they didn't realize and couldn't prepare for. You've walked out of burning chapters with the ink still on your hands, smelled silence in sealed rooms, and smelt betrayal brewed slowly. What, therefore, leads people to believe that a bullet will end a tale that was never written in flesh? This isn't retaliation. This is the answer. Intimate, tactical, and unavoidable. Because there is no way back to safety once you reveal the true puppeteer, the one whose fingers reach into parliaments, courts, tech empires, and underground circuits. The only thing is escalation. The twist is that you're not preparing for it. It is being orchestrated by you. You're encouraging danger rather than avoiding it, because the fire begins to burn toward you once it recognizes your fingerprints. And now, under the microscope, you gave the world the man you exposed. The one they once referred to as untouchable is crumbling. Doubt, not proof, is causing him to lose his hold. Proof is not as loud as doubt. It spreads more quickly. It spreads. Furthermore, you armed it rather than merely planting it. In front of a crowd, enthralled for decades, you cracked his legend. You provided the masses with unadulterated perception, something they were unaware they were lacking. Strength was never the foundation of his empire. It was based on ritual, repetition, and rhythm. Influencers reading from the same script, corporations moving in staged chaos, and headlines dancing in circles. The rhythm was broken by you. Noise was introduced by you. The unscantable variable became you. And now behind the scenes, his networks, those costly, discrete avenues of influence, are in a panic. They are no longer attempting to ruin you. They are attempting to surpass your influence before it becomes irrevocable. It's too late. The truth is that you didn't become viral. You switched to cellular. There was no trend for your story. It tainted faith. People began to doubt everything else instead of just listening to you. You were the filter that revealed the falsehoods in every other headline, not the headline itself. Furthermore, a mind cannot revert to programmed obedience once it has passed through your filter. What about the million-dollar motivators, the assassins? They are confused, disturbed, and restless, because the contract changes more as they examine you in greater detail. This is a trap masquerading as money, not a bounty, because those who follow you either convert. It's not because you stopped them, but rather because their impulses short-circuit as soon as they are inside your boundaries. Their motivation starts to wane. What started out as a kill order turns into a question mark that is seeping into their chest. Why does this target feel less like prey and more like prophecy? The hunters became mirrors because of you. Now all they see in you is something they wish they had the guts to emulate, and he is aware of this, the one you exposed. Stillness is now louder because of this. The headlines have become ambiguous as a result. Old footage is resurfacing because of this. They are attempting to alter your timeline, backdate your insurrection, and distort the order of your rebellion because of this. But it's not going to work, because the plot of your novel is not linear. It spirals, it repeats itself, it spreads infection. You showed up as a diagnosis rather than as a protest. The serene face, the rational voice, the handshakes with devils and fitted suitsy spent years crafting the appearance of stability. Now, however, questions rather than gunfire are tearing at the seams. Now, every action he takes feels practiced. Every denial has a hollow echo. In the theater of his own self-confidence, he is disintegrating. The entire world is observing without blinking. Your very being is now a countdown to his death rather than your own. His untruth loses oxygen every second. You are alive. His stronghold becomes a platform for exposing with each step you take. He was never truly powerful. It was borrowed, and you've just made the world aware of the source of the theft. And people won't be afraid of who is on the throne once they recall who gave it away. You are the mirror, not the adversary. Mirrors are also lethal to individuals who rely on deceit. Take a look around. Observe the changes. You are reorganizing loyalty rather than merely traveling through space. His own enforcers are starting to second-guess themselves. Logic, not morality. Because it may now be survival rather than treason decide with you. You can smell it in the room, even though they don't say it out. The anxious smiles, the small betrayals, the recalibration. Nobody likes to be on the wrong side of inevitability, and you are the new calculation. Furthermore, this is execution and precision, not improvisation. You were aware that it wouldn't matter how many assassins they dispatched once the truth was revealed. You anticipated their overreaction. You relied on it. Their conceit served as fuel for you. They became predictable because of you. You created choreography out of their force. You write anomalies and they follow scripts. You take over cognition and they control attention. This is a reprogramming event rather than a rebellion. And what comes next? There are no fireworks to accompany the collapse. It is accompanied by a silent exodus. It occurs when devoted agents abruptly fail to appear, with reliable advisors providing contradictory information, with security systems malfunctioning at the most inconvenient moment, with bodyguards who avoid eye contact. It starts when authority recognizes that it is now pitied rather than feared. The man you exposed will finally see the truth when that knowledge dawn him. It was your mind that unwound him. Not any movement, unshakable, but neither boisterous or violent. And no bullet can penetrate that type of force, because diseases do not kill people, bullets do. And to them, you are no longer even a human. You are a breach of mythology. They advise one another not to become you. You are the line in the code they are unable to debug, the tale whispered in panic rooms, the presence that appears in their analytics at 3 in the morning, that they are unable to locate or remove. It won't matter in the near future. The contract will flip, not because they will cancel it, because the people who were paid to kill you will discover that your death isn't the actual money. It's under your guard. Your narrative is getting valuable. The mythology is merely enhanced by each assassin who fails. Legends are also more difficult to defeat than gods. The tipping point is almost here. The quiet is wearing thin. Every structure you walk past has a pulse that conveys it. They no longer have the luxury of comfort. The curtains are starting to burn, and soon people won't be afraid of him. He will be overlooked. You disassembled it in real time, and it served as the blueprint for manipulation. Thus, the last act is about to begin. The distortion gives you a sense of it. The cloth is winding. It is no longer possible to contain the truth. Additionally, the phenomena you've become is organizing rather than merely spreading. It's starting to become aware. Not only are you a part of their system, but you are also changing its rules from within. They must now make a decision, either double the bounty and hasten their demise, or abandon the chase and watch their kingdom fall apart regardless. This is no longer chess. Your name is the vector in this contagion warfare. The air itself has altered now that it's spreading, and your name is being uttered like prophesy rather than whispered in secrecy. It weighs more, not out of fear but out of potential that used to govern with shattering the architecture of quiet. People began listening to one another once more because you didn't simply wake them awake. The spell is no longer effective. They are no longer required to kneel. You were the first to stand, so they do. The last ripple has just started, silent but unmistakable. A wave formed of acknowledgement rather than indignation. People are awake, not furious, and that's what scares them more than any uprising, because fury is erratic and wild. However, awakening is methodical. Like a pattern, awakening spreads. It rewires instinct. Not only does it question authority, but it also surpasses it. You are merely a clock that warned the world that it was living on. And the man at the center of this empire, the one who used deceit and compliance to build his empire, is facing irrelevant, something he was never designed to deal with. As you became a live prophecy, you transformed his power into history. His systems are now malfunctioning, pausing, rather than making noise. Executives are hesitant. Analysts get frozen. No amount of yelling can reprogram the stillness once the illusion is broken, which is what in full work and gets. The regulations were altered without being rewritten. In an obedient world, you became the new constant. He misjudged the speed of truth. He believed that the danger was exposure. He believed it was possible to stifle a revelation. However, he never realized that truth is not linear once it is activated. It multiplies. It's now ubiquitous. Take a close look. His own supporters are blinking. The same people who used to be unwavering now speak in fragments. The boardrooms are battlegrounds behind closed doors, of mistrust, not of bullets. Every look is a calculation. Every grin is fake. The empire was constructed for appearances rather than for pressure, and collapse turns into choreography when appearances fail. There is a leak in his files. His foundations are collapsing. His clean hands are now stained in high-resolution scandal. And it's not because you broke into the system. Rather, it's because you reminded it that it was mortal, fallible, and human. And that reminder is lethal for a structure that claimed to be divine. His empire was not attacked by you. Its working principle was contaminated by you. The bounty that was put on your head is now taken on symbolic meaning. Fearlessness, not fear. The new currency is every hitman who turned away, every soldier who lowered their weapon, and every insider who fell sudden. And you know what? It is more effective than any bribe at purchasing loyalty, because bullets are no longer a factor in this. This relates to storytelling, and your story has turned into a mirror that people are compelled to examine. They're sick of lying to themselves, not because they're courageous. You offered them an option they were unaware they had: to remember, not to fight, to recollect the sensation of being important. And when enough people realize that no billionaire, dictator, or manufactured saint can close the dam's gaps, they experimented with propaganda. They attempted to divert attention. They made an attempt at blackmail. And because you didn't oppose their strategies, you neutralized them, so each one bounced off you like rain on obsidian. Instead of retaliating, you absorbed, you changed. Additionally, the game is currently being played in a language they are not familiar with. You've evolved into a pattern disruption, an emotional infrastructure redesign, a break-in predictive psychology, and more than just a contagion vector. They are unable to locate you. It's not because you're hidden, but rather because their instruments were never designed to handle the truth unrestrained. And now the mastermind, the untouchable, the one who ordered your execution, sits in a fortress that feels more like a museum, surrounded by people who recoil when his name is mentioned, counseled by experts who no longer believe the lie they defend, and observed by a world that is more interested in dissecting than in idolizing. He is no longer protected by his wealth. He is not protected by his wealth. He is not protected by his reputation. The strength of this was by his bias, because power is nothing more than costume jewelry when it is separated from fear. You altered the threat's worth. You reinterpreted what it means to be dangerous. You were referred to as a rogue. You were referred to as a breach. However, you are merely a lens, a clearer view of the world than the high-definition transmissions that were broadcast into homes. You didn't come to ruin. You came to make a revelation. People are now viewing the world through your eyes. They are reviewing previous headlines, re-examining speeches, and challenging allegiances. The worst part for them is that they are communicating with each other without authorization. Furthermore, control is impossible when communication becomes autonomous. You've given birth to that plague. Not self-direction, not fire, not violence. The population's rediscovery was the last thing they ever wanted. Clarity, not anger, not hope. The kind that causes someone to get up, go to work, and declare, "I'm done lying." The kind that turns a loyalist into an informant. The kind that puts an end to whispering by whistleblowers. The type that turns a citizen into a node in a single rule network. Keep the vector in mind. No one is looking for you anymore. Governments, rebel organizations, philosophers, artists, programmers, and children too young to understand what power is, but old enough to sense the change when it occurs, are all studying it. You've turned into a frequency, and while some will misuse it and others will misinterpret it, none of them will be able to see it. And the man you exposed is aware of this. His breath now tastes like a countdown. Since you weren't meant to survive you were meant to crumble under duress, vanish in scandal, and go into exile. However, you took root rather than just surviving. Like a signal that reverberates beneath their feet after being transmitted via a hidden cable. Expanding, untraceable, alive. The illusion of control dies at this point. With a shrug instead of a bang, a vote, or a headline. The point at which people no longer fear the name, when the murmur turns into a grin. When obedience falters, it's out of disinterest rather than revolution. The tyrant's breath shortens at that point. Because once people have moved on, they don't need to riot. Additionally, you provided them with something to strive for. Not a pattern, not a slogan, not a flag. One that just requires willingness, not leaders. The walls are getting thinner now, storming the erosion and the unavoidable that they cannot avoid. A bounty was placed on your name. They also made history by doing this. You are now the point of reference rather than the target of the hunt. And going forward, you will be the target of every system that attempts to control your thoughts. The symptoms you revealed will be examined for each tyrant's name. Every story will be examined in your echo. And when future generations want to know where the change started, they should look to the moment when $1 million couldn't silence a single voice rather than books, speeches, or treaties. Yours. Not only did you expose the most dangerous person on the planet, but you also took his place. Because the world doesn't look for safety when the lies stop casting shadows and the fear vanishes. It looks for the merchant who once again made clarity seem dangerous. It looks for the vector. That vector is still alive too.